Whenever people imagine the fall of Rome, the same scenes come to mind. Barbarians at the gates, legions falling apart, emperors being poisoned in their grand marble palaces. But empires don't collapse overnight. The real downfall usually begins from within. And the most insidious reason behind that decay is often money. Rome didn't fall because of foreign invasions or betrayal from within. The real collapse began when its money lost its value. And the lessons hidden in this story still matter today for every nation on earth. Because throughout history, whenever rulers thought they could play with money, it was always their people who paid the price. Money was the very essence of Rome's power for centuries. A silver coin called the denarius was the lifeblood of Rome, almost pure silver. It first began to be minted in 211 BC, long before the birth of Christ. Soldiers were paid with it, merchants traded with it, and ordinary citizens saved their wealth in it. The denarius was more than money. It was a symbol of trust in Rome itself. The value of its currency was tied to the power of its empire. If people trusted Rome, they trusted its money. But running an empire wasn't cheap. The army needed salaries, the roads needed stones, the wars demanded gold. Over time, expenses grew, taxes weren't enough. And emperors found an easy solution: reduce the silver content of the coins. On the surface, they kept minting the same-looking coins, but with less silver inside. The people thought they were holding the same money, not realizing it was the same coin with less worth. As money lost value, trust disappeared. At first, nobody noticed the change. But slowly, the coins began to fade in color, to feel lighter in the hand. Eventually, the people realized something was wrong, and that's when the chain reaction began. Prices started to rise. A measure of wheat that once cost 1 denarius now cost 3 or 4. Soldiers demanded higher pay. Merchants refused to trade with the coin. In some regions, people returned to bartering because money no longer inspired confidence. Rome kept repeating the same mistake. If there's not enough money, let's just print more. But that was the beginning of the end. The more they minted, the less it was worth. The less it was worth, the more they minted. A vicious cycle had begun, and in the end, the economy completely collapsed. The crisis exploded with the empire in the 3rd century AD. Rome entered what we now call the crisis of the 3rd century. For nearly 50 years, the empire was torn apart by invasions, civil wars, and plagues. Emperors came and went like the seasons. But behind all the chaos was the same issue. Money had lost its value. Taxes were collected in worthless coins. Farmers abandoned their lands. Trade came to a halt. The Roman government tried everything, fixing prices, forcing people to work, even imposing death penalties. But once money loses its value, no law can bring it back. Diocletian and his failed plan, Emperor Diocletian, saw the chaos and said, "The economy is out of control. I must intervene." In 301 AD, he issued the edict on maximum prices. The state fixed prices on thousands of goods, grain, meat, labor, everything. And he declared, "Whoever sells above these prices shall die." But even that didn't work, because the problem wasn't prices, it was the money itself. If money is worthless, no amount of law will fix it. A black market exploded, trade went underground, and the people soon learned the hard truth. No matter what the government says, nobody trusts worthless money. New coin, old wound in the end, Rome decided to scrap the denarius entirely. Emperor Constantine introduced a new pure gold coin, the solidus, in 312 AD. It brought temporary stability, lasting for centuries in Byzantium. But for the Western Roman Empire, it was already too late. Trust was gone. Trade was gone. The army had no money left to stand on. Rome didn't fall in a single day. It decayed from within. And the most invisible reason behind that decay was the rot in its money. The same game, repeated through history. This story isn't unique to Rome. Every time a government says, let's print a bit more money, nobody will notice. The result is always the same. Look at the 20th century. After World War I, Germany was crushed under huge reparations. To pay its debts, the government did what Rome did. It printed money. And the result? Hyperinflation in 1923. A loaf of bread that once cost 1 mark now cost 200 million marks. People carried their salaries in sacks and wheelbarrows. Money became so worthless that retirees saw their life savings vanish overnight. Those with debts prospered. Those who saved were ruined. Money lost all meaning, and out of that chaos rose Hitler. The same scenario in Zimbabwe in the early 2000s. Zimbabwe followed the same path. The government was drowning in debt, production was falling, and farmlands were being seized. The printing presses ran day and night. And the result? By 2008, inflation had reached 89.7 sextillion% per year. Prices doubled, sometimes tripled, every day. Shops couldn't change price tags fast enough. Eventually, the country abandoned its own currency and adopted the US dollar and South African rand. And once again, the lesson was the same. You can't fight reality. You can print money, but it's the people who pay the price. What's changed in the modern world? Not much, really. The only difference is that now money isn't metal, it's paper. In 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard, cutting the dollar's link to gold. Since then, the dollar's value has rested on just one thing: trust in the government. But trust is fragile. And like Rome, the U.S. couldn't stop spending. Debts grew, money supply soared, and inflation became inevitable. Today, the dollar in your hand buys only 1/6 of what it did in 1971. The paper looks the same. The face on it is the same, but its value is gone. Same game. New packaging governments always play the same game. They say inflation means growth. When wages rise, they say prosperity is coming, but prices rise faster. They call debt investment, but it only fuels consumption. When the stock market goes up, they say the country is richer, even though most citizens own no stocks at all. This show has been running since Rome, a grand illusion to make sure no one notices the money is being hollowed out. The difference today: the game is global. Rome's fall was an imperial crisis. Weimar Germany's was national. Zimbabwe's was local. But today, the whole world shares one system: fiat money, massive debt, and endless printing. Now, if one country collapses, it can pull others down like dominoes. The next crisis won't topple just one empire. It could shake the entire world. And once again, history whispers the same warning. Those who survive such collapses are the ones who own real assets, land, skills, production, real value. Those living paycheck to paycheck, they fall with the money. From Rome to today, 3 lessons to remember. Inflation is not an accident. It's a policy, a silent tax that's been eating empires from within for millennia. Real wealth is beyond money. It's in land, skill, production, and tangible value. No system lasts forever. If you told a Roman in the 1st century that their coins would one day be worthless, they'd laugh. So would a German in 1913. So would a Zimbabwean in the 1980s. But they all met the same fate. The real collapse always starts from within. Rome reminds us of a simple truth. Economies collapse slowly, then all at once. When trust disappears, everything else falls apart. When money loses value, society unravels. Contracts break, trade stops, armies crumble, governments lose legitimacy. The barbarians at the gate might strike the final blow, but the real killer is in the treasury, and here's the final thought. History doesn't just repeat. It crushes those who refuse to learn. Rome's monetary crisis wasn't just about bad emperors. It was about the fragility that appears when power begins to abuse money. And that fragility is still with us today. If this story gave you a new perspective, remember, history is still speaking. Only those who listen can see the future. If you like this story, stay tuned. There's more to come.